Okay, this video is going to give you an XML overview. XML files are used a lot within Android development, and even if IDEs like Eclipse and Android Studio are hiding a lot of the complexities, it's still really important for you to at least know the basics about XML. So let's go through a quick overview and to really to help get you up to speed with what you need to know. Firstly, to talk about XML, we really need to talk about HTML. So HTML is the universal language that is used by web pages, although there's other technologies like CSS for helping with the graphics and PHP to help with it, or they work with it, I should say. And think of the HTML as the building blocks for a standard web page, essentially. The HTML itself describes the basic structure of a web page. It controls how that web page will be displayed in the browser. It allows linking to other pages. It supports various media, like video, images, and so on, or audio files. And it really helps make the page work on many devices. So it's really the basic building blocks, if you like, for a web page. Now HTML works by the use of tags. So on screen you can see there's two tags. There's that less than sign, the B, then a greater than, and then below that there's also another one which is the less than sign, but it's got a slash B and then a greater than sign. So they're actually tags, and think of a tag sort of almost like an instruction. So essentially, if you were to put this into a HTML file and open it in a web browser, they're effectively telling the web browser to issue a command or to treat it as a command and to, sort of operate on that command. And the web browsers of today understand HTML, and they know what to do. In this case, when they see that, that little B enclosed in the less than and the greater than sign, they know what to do with it. So in that example, if the text in the HTML file looked like this, you can see I've surrounded the words Tim was here within two tags, the less than, B, greater than, and then the other one with the slash. The web browser would actually display this. It would display Tim, but in bold, because the B command effectively means make whatever text you see within the two tags to be bold. And just out of interest, the slash in the second tag, the one to the right of the Tim was here text, that is saying to HTML, close. Now that's the end of the statement. So effectively, a web browser will look at those two things. It'll look at the first tag and say, okay, I'm going to have to start creating rendering the text bold. And then when it comes across to the next statement and it finds the slash B, it goes, oh, okay, that's ending. So I'm going to stop rendering at this point. So from then on, it wouldn't be bold. So if there was another word that I added to the right of the second tag, like an exclamation mark or something, that wouldn't be bold, if that makes sense. So a tag is not displayed on the screen as such. It's interpreted by the web browser, and a command is sort of generated. It's only the text that's between those that is actually the data as such, and used to be displayed on screen in this case. Okay, so HTML is all very well and good, but XML. Well, XML is similar to HTML and uses tags in a similar way, but it uses them to construct a very specific document. Think of XML at a high level as effectively a database, and it records the data only, not how to display the data. Now, Android app development uses a number of XML files. In previous videos, you already saw the layout.xml, which was one example of an XML file that's used within Eclipse. So the easiest way with XML is to think of it like a database used by the Android developer tools and Android Studio to store information about your app. So because if you think about it, as you're updating your app and you're creating it in Eclipse or whatever technology we're using, somewhere it has to be stored. What text is going to be displayed on the screen, what buttons are on the screen, all those types of things. That's what the tools do. They use the XML files to store that so that they know how to sort of recreate it next time you start up Eclipse. I think it'll become a lot more clearer if we go into Eclipse and look at the structures and discuss those a little bit further. So let's go now and look in Eclipse and go through a few things. Okay, as per normal, I'm going to go into my Android Developer Tools bundle folder, subfolder Eclipse, and I'm going to start Eclipse. Click OK to accept the default workspace. Okay, now we're in the My First app that we created in the previous section of this course. So we're going to use that as an example. So what we're going to do is really have a bit of a look at some of the XML files so you can sort of see real world examples, and hopefully that'll solidify what I'm saying. So we're going to open the first app, and we're going to just try and open a basic file. So let's open the layout file that I talked briefly about, and we actually showed that in a previous video rather. So I'm going to double click activity_main. You can see that I opened up the res folder, then the layout subdirectory, and then you can double click activity main. Now that shows it in a graphical sense, but if we want to see the raw XML, we click on this down here, the XML file. And now what we've got on the screen is the XML. So you remember in the example just a minute ago, I talked about having like a tag. So we talked about using a tag with the /b, and there's a tag there. So we could have done something like, you see what happened there when I did that? This is what Eclipse does. It automatically knows that, okay, you're typing a tag, I'm going to put the end tag there. So that would be our example. Now, it wouldn't make much sense to do that in this case because, of course, we're not going to be rendering this in a web browser. This is used for the data. But the point I want to make here is that you've got a tag like this. Now, this is actually an instruction to tell Android that there's going to be a text view area of the app itself. Now, if we go back here and have a look, that's this area here where there's the hello world. So that's what the XML there is actually doing. It's sort of saying, okay, we're going to use the entire width and wrap the content for both, and we're going to display the string hello world in that area. So that's what that XML is doing. It's the data only. It's leaving it to the Android application itself to do the the actual layout as such. This is describing it. So this is the data, all about basically what's actually in your application. So as I mentioned, there's two ways to do tags. There's in our examples before we had and that's quite a valid example. But you can see there's another way, and with the text view, basically what they've done is they've used the one tag, but they've ended it with the last slash. They've actually ended it with a slash. So you can see there that essentially if there's a slash and then the greater than sign, that's closing off that area. So look, I don't want to get too tied up in this and sort of get you too confused, but we'll be going through this further as we go through the course anyway. But the points I want to make here is that you can't really get into difficulty if you just sort of take your time and go through it step by step. So I'm going to delete some of this. Right, I'm just going to clean it up. So essentially, these other commands that you're looking at here, you will never need to worry about those. Those things there, you won't need to worry about. They are used within Eclipse to validate this file so that it's actually correct. As far as it's concerned, that it's got valid data in there. You can't really go wrong because if you mess something up, let's just say we'll do that. We'll go to save it. You can see there's an error. So it actually tells you straight away, look, there's an error in the file and it's not going to process it. There's a red little cross on the screen. So, you can't really get yourself into difficulty there. And the other thing we'll do, and we'll be showing this in future videos, I'm just saving that now, which should get rid of the error. And the error has now disappeared, as you can see. But again, at this stage, you don't necessarily need to understand all this. We'll be going through this throughout the course. But I just want to show you how the tools like Eclipse will help you. Like, for example, at some point you'll be typing in some of these commands. We can type in Android, press the colon button, and look what's happened. Automatically, Eclipse has popped up a list. So it knows that, okay, you're in this section. Here's some of the options. And then to the right-hand side, you've got some help. Positions the right edge of this view to the left of the given anchor. And there's a list of them. And you can just click on one. And you can see it's automatically added the command for you. So we'll be going through this more in detail, but really I just wanted to give you a real world example of what an XML file is, because I know from having spoken to people in the past, they get a little bit worried about XML and think, look, it's quite confusing. But okay, so think of it really just like a database. It's used within these tools, within Eclipse and Android Studio, to manage your application. So it knows what to draw on the screen. It knows the structure. It knows what's going to be included in your app. It's all sort of stored within these XML files, and it does get easier. As we go through some of the new apps and start using this, you'll find it becomes very familiar. Okay, so let's look at a quick example of how an XML file works. So I'm going to close that down because we don't want to save anything there. We're not going to save the changes, but we'll go to one of our values files and to our strings. Now, before I do that, actually, we'll just run the application in an emulator just to confirm that it's working. I'll go back to my emulator. Well, actually, it's going to ask me first. So I'm going to choose my Android virtual device, and that's because I haven't got my Android physical device plugged in. I'm going to click on that, and we'll go back to our emulator. We'll unlock it, and there's our app. You can see it says My First App, Hello World. But let's go through and let's change this. So a very quick way to change it is to go into values and into strings. So again, it's the strings XML. Let's change the Hello World text. And we'll put Tim was here. We're going to save that. So I've just held down Command and press S, so it'll be Control S on the PC. Now if we go back, actually we'll just run it again. Okay, so I'm just going to run it as an Android application. Select my Android virtual device again. Tab over. Tim was here. So you can see that's got updated. So hopefully that's giving you a bit of an idea about how these XML files are used. You can see there that this file obviously was used somewhere else in the application, and again in future projects I'll be showing you how to do that. But essentially that's read this section here, and it knows to put that text in that spot on the screen when we went to run the application. So that's a quick introduction to XML. I hope you've got a lot out of it. And again, you don't need to be an expert with this yet. You will be learning more as you go through, but I just felt it was important just to get those basics out of the way before we continue. Let's move on to the next video.